This is Carrie Gordon. I'm back to talk to you about making healthy burgers. And Courtney already showed us how to make some burgers with poultry as opposed to beef, just because it's healthier. And here's another version of a healthier burger, and it's a bean burger. And this is a combination of black beans and pinto beans. I just decided to use a mix of 1 can of each to show you really could use either. Black beans or pinto beans, really any kind of canned or dried bean that you cook could be used. I strained these out already and rinsed them off, but I did save the bean liquid because depending on how the texture of the burger is before we start to put them together, we may find it needs a little more liquid, and adding something like this is going to have a lot more flavor than adding in water. So we're going to dump these right in. Whenever you make bean burgers, you're going to want to think about what vegetables you can add in. So today we're using some canned mushrooms, and these are no salt added mushrooms. I'm going to add those. And we're going to add some sweet peppers. If you like things spicy, the other thing you could do is add in some spicy peppers. You can add in fresh herbs or dry herbs. Today we're going to add in for our flavorings some garlic. All right, this has already been minced. I'm going to put in, for about the 2 cans, I think I'm going to put in, it'll be about 1.5 teaspoons. I just made a really big teaspoon of garlic. All right, I'm going to add in some smoked paprika. And smoked paprika can have a lot of flavor. You don't want to overdo it with smoked paprika. So I'm going to start with just 1 teaspoon. One of the things that's great about bean burgers, as opposed to making, turkey burgers or hamburgers, is that you can test it once it's all mixed together for the flavor to see, hey, do I need to add a little bit of extra flavoring, because there's nothing in there that you can't, eat like you can't with. Obviously, you can't taste raw meat, so you have to wait till it's all cooked. You could use some fresh herbs. I don't have any fresh cilantro, which I really do love, although not everybody likes cilantro. Some people don't process it in a way that it actually tastes good. It can really taste soapy to them. I'm going to use some coriander in this, about 1 teaspoon. Coriander actually comes from cilantro when it goes to seed. That's coriander. So it has kind of a lemony flavor, which is really kind of nice. Kind of brightens it up a little bit. And then I'm going to use some ground cumin. Cumin is one of my go-to spices. It's one of those fun spices. It actually, if you smell it, it has kind of a strong flavor, but it doesn't have really a strong flavor when you taste it. I'm going to do 2 teaspoons of cumin. This cumin I put in when I make guacamole. I put it in a lot of Indian recipes and a lot of anything that has sort of a Mexican flavor. And you have an option. You're going to need something with some salt, so you could either use either salt, or if you have it, you can use some soy sauce. Just give it the salt flavor. As a low sodium soy sauce, I'm going to use about a tablespoon. All right. The end of my bottle here. All right, and I'm going to mix all this together, and then I'm going to add in my oats. These oats are going to be really what helps dry it up and to bind it a little bit, and it's going to give it even more fiber. Not that you don't have a lot of fiber already with your with the black beans, because that's a really great way to get fiber into your diet. And lots of protein. They're super healthy for you. Canned beans are a little bit more expensive than getting dried beans, but dried beans do take a little bit more prep time. If you have something like a pressure cooker, you can cook them up pretty quickly, but otherwise you kind of have to think ahead when you use dried beans to soak them overnight to cook them. It takes a little bit of time to cook them on the stove top. Once you cook them, they don't keep for very long in the fridge, but if you want to make a big batch of beans, you can keep them in the freezer. And then, so if you have them already sort of set aside, you could just take those out, and those would have worked perfectly well in a recipe like this. So I'm just going to kind of get all the more wet stuff mixed in before I put in the oats, because what you don't want to have happen is you don't want to have pockets of garlic or pockets of areas where there's some of the wet ingredients. If you have a food processor, super quick, you can just toss this in the food processor, but we wanted to make it in a way that if you don't have one, you can still really do bean burgers. I'm going to, it depends on how wet this is, how much I need to add, so I'm going to start with about 1/2 cup, and then we'll see as I mash it all together. First I'll mix it. As I mash it all together, is it dry enough? Is it holding together? The other thing to keep in mind when you're making these type of burgers is that it may not seem like it holds together right away, but sometimes after you mash it up, if you keep it in the fridge for 10 minutes or so, it may hold together a little better. Other things you can add that's a good binder, breadcrumbs, but Oats are going to be a lot healthier for us probably than using breadcrumbs. Sometimes you'll see these types of recipes with some egg in there. That's another thing that can help things stick together. So this is mashing up really easy, and it's a little more exercise than doing it in the food processor. So I've got it all mashed together. I've added a little bit more of the oats because it's a little bit sticky. All right, and we got our pan. Before I start making the burgers, we've got to make sure our pan is on. That's on. I just started as I added these oats. You really want it to warm up. Not too warm, but warm enough before you go ahead and add the burgers, and make sure there's a little oil in there. We still have a little oil from the chicken burgers that we cooked, so I'm not going to add any more right now. This is a cast iron pan. It has a little bit of oil in it sort of already. And I tasted it, so I think the spice mixture is perfect. And I'm going to go ahead and make up my burger. Now when I make up these burgers, I always try to make a ball first, nice and round, and then flatten it out. It kind of helps them hold together a little better. And you know, you make these whatever size you really want. Sometimes people would want to make little small ones and have a couple of them on a salad, or you might want to make one that's like sort of normal hamburger size. I'm going to make a couple and put them in the pan here. It's going to sizzle. It's nice and hot. So if you like spicy, you could add chili powder. If you like, you know, more veggies in it, there's lots of different veggies you could add. And black beans go really well also with like a winter squash. So you could add some pureed squash into it. The more wet things you add to it, probably the more oats you're going to need. All right. Fresh herbs are delicious in this. You could add dry or fresh herbs, parsley, cilantro, oregano would be really good, basil. Depending on sort of what theme you're going with. My flavors today were a little bit more on the sort of Mexican or Latin, you know, with the coriander, cumin, and paprika. Make 3 of them. We'll put them in. So these really just want to kind of get them warmed through. There's not like making a chicken or turkey burger where it has to get it to a certain internal temperature. And you can also bake these in the oven if you prefer. I think I like them a little crisper on the outside, and so I think it's kind of fun to cook them in the pan and brown them up. And you don't have to use a lot of oil to get them good and brown. So we'll show you what they look like when they're good and brown. I probably would do at least 4 minutes aside, and then we can just kind of get a sense of has it warmed through.